Hello and welcome to Sip and Tip. I'm MJ.
And I'm Zanae.
And today we are going to talk about love languages.
Yes, how do you like to be loved?
So I want to point out that there's two caveats to this, if you will. There's the language you speak in terms of love and the language you receive in terms of love. And they're not always the same. So first let's review the five love languages. The first one, well, I shouldn't say the first one, but one major form, especially in the U.S., is gift giving.
Right.
Another form is affirmations.
Yes.
One of my favorites is quality time.
That's my favorite. Quality time.
What's another one of your favorites?
Acts of service.
That's
I
a
like
good
when
one.
people do kind things. Gestures. Anything kind. Yes.
So we're missing one. Which is the
physical touch.
Physical touch. Oh, how could I forget
I
that?
know, that's one of your favorites.
I love that. I love that. Okay, how could I forget that? Okay, so that's the five. That's the five different forms or languages, love languages that there are. And so for me, I love to show love through gift giving because it's kind of something I've just learned to do. I also love to give affirmations and or physical touch. I'm very sensual and very touchy-feely, which can get me into trouble sometimes. But yes, that's just my way of showing love.
Well, see, you do that very well. You give great hugs. Just
Thank
so you know, I love hugs. And whenever you've given a gift, you've always given the words of affirmation, which I find great. I don't myself tend to use them unless they're given to me, and then I see them and I'm like, oh wait, let's do this, and I enjoy it. I do. But you're really good with all of them, I think.
Oh, thank
I
you.
think you are. I have a little problem with the gift giving these days, because I myself don't know enough about an individual to give them the right gift, and that's my thing. I want to give the right gift, something that suits your life, something that you'll use, not just sit on a shelf and get dusty and forget about it.
Right.
You know, I want it to mean something.
And I think there's two parts to that. Is you can give somebody something that even they're speaking that they want,
True.
but they not really know how to utilize. And this happens a lot in intimate relationships where people are like, I need this. And then when they get it, they don't know what to do with it, or they don't know how to utilize it or appreciate it even sometimes. So that's always a disconnect too, because although you know you need it, do you know how to utilize it? Do you know how to make it work for you? I've seen this, and as most people know, I'm a life coach. I've seen this in relationships where the women, or the more passive person, is saying, I need to be validated.
Right.
I need you to see who I am. And then when we go through the steps of learning and implementing techniques to validate you or that person, then it's like, oh, well, now this feels weird and I don't really know what to do with it after that. So you might need that, but you have to be willing to accept it as well. And so that's another form of a gift. It's not a tangible gift, but it's a gift that, people are working hard to try and make your needs very well known and appreciated and putting it into real life. So that's a gift in some ways.
It's true.
But if you're, some people can say, I need my rent paid. If you go pay their rent and they're like, well, I didn't really want that right now. But again, that's another way of just not knowing how to utilize that gift.
Yeah, but sometimes that gift would be much.
Right.
You can't do that for some people. They take advantage.
And again, some people just are not able to receive that because that's not something that resonates with them.
Right.
And that's fine. It's all in different perspectives. Same thing with sense of touch. Especially in today's world where everybody's screaming sexual harassment. And again, I'm not blaming or shaming anyone. I would never. at the same time, there is another aspect of there are people like myself that are more touchy. So even in us talking, I'll touch a leg, I'll reach over, because that sense of touch, that social interaction is how I communicate.
Right. But some people could take it a different way.
Right.
And get in trouble with it.
Right. And especially in the sense of the world where if you understand or know, and this is where I come into issues where people know I'm a lesbian. I'm a proud lesbian. And so men don't really take offense to me because I'm a female, or as one guy liked to say, you look like a female, so you're fine. Which again, I don't really get that, but whatever. But because I'm a lesbian, that then changes my role. I'm not just a woman. And so sometimes people see things through their lenses. And if you're used to being preyed upon as a lesbian, it changes my disposition, because now if you have the mentality that people are always preying upon you sexually, I then change figures. I'm no longer just a woman. I'm aligned more with a male because I'm a lesbian. But I don't want everybody. Just like every man doesn't want everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
That is just a misconception. Everyone does not fit everybody's thing. I'm not for a lot of people, and I know that.
Exactly.
But for people that feel as though they're always being preyed upon, for one reason or another, sometimes it's past trauma, sometimes it's just the way they were taught or educated on their personal being. However that may be, I would never want to overstep their boundaries.
Right, and that's where you say physical touch could then get you into trouble.
Right.
You need to know where that boundary line is.
Right, but for young people that are growing up and have this need to interact socially and physically, they don't understand that. And they don't get that. And that could get people into trouble earlier in life, whether it's at work, legally, whatever the case may be, even though they don't mean it in a sexual manner. Being that we sexualize a lot of content, that's what it turns out to be. So even with that, you kind of got to just know your audience, and it's not always easy to read the audience because physical touch is emotionally charged for a lot of people, especially in today's world where there's a lot of things that go on that are not talked about. So touching someone's hand or providing a hug when both parties are not really on the same page is a gray area. So it's really hard to be a person that communicates through touch in today's society.
Right. Okay.
But on a lighter note, quality time is another big one. In a fast-paced world that we live in, when do you find time to spend quality time?
That is very difficult because in your world you're racing, constantly going. You got children that need different things. You've got a relationship you're handling. Your job is demanding. Then you also have to find that little quiet piece of time for yourself. But with that, then it's like, okay, where do I find that quality time? For me, it's when I'm in my own little space and someone decides to come in. Oh, there's that quality time. I can give it. I really can't do quality time unless it's one-on-one.
Right. And I think there's another taboo mechanism to quality time is people think quality time has to be long periods.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be. It just has to be focused.
Right.
So even if you're not by yourself and you're out at a post or pre-COVID at a restaurant and there's all this stuff going on, just taking that time to zone in on the people or the person that you're with and just say, I noticed this about you. The simple little comments or compliments that you can give in those moments is amazing. And I don't think people honor them as much because they only come so few and far along the way.
And see, that goes with how everybody's constantly.
Yeah.
And it's, oh. And then it's, what'd you say? Oh, yeah, I'm listening. But you're
That's
really not listening.
Yeah.
you're doing this. How about we do this? And it's quality time. It's
Right.
you and me. I'm here with you. I'm listening to everything you're saying. I hear you. I feel you. We're connected.
Right. And so that is another thing that I suggest for couples specifically, because you lose track of all the things you've built because you're on autopilot.
Right.
And you're just going because you have so many things that you have to focus on and juggle, and especially if you have children, you lose sight of yourself, let alone your relationship.
True
And
enough.
so just taking those moments, even right before you fall asleep, sometimes, fall asleep talking, that's okay.
Mhm.
You still have those few minutes before, and just take those few minutes to reconnect and just really understand where the other person is, how they're feeling, and what their day has brought them. Because ultimately we all have, adverse reactions or experiences to parenting in different aspects, to job and employment, whether you're an entrepreneur or you work for someone else. You're having these feelings and these things that you're not always able to process, and you push it back. There's only so much you can shove in a closet at once before that door comes bursting open.
True enough.
And that's when most people are like, well, you just exploded out of nowhere. But you've been pushing back and shoving things in this figurative closet for how long?
Right.
And if you're compiling that with not having your love language spoken to you or received, you now don't even feel the love that maybe your relationship was founded off of, or that your relationship should have. You're not feeling it because it's not being communicated to you in the way you know.
Right.
Or maybe you're not taking the time to communicate to your partner in a way that they know. Because you might not speak the same languages.
True enough.
And that's okay that you don't, because most people don't.
Right.
But understanding what means the most to your partner is what matters. And partners could be anything. It could be relationships with work. People who throw around the term, work wives or work
Right.
husbands. I've had a few of those, work wives and work husbands. And again, it's the little things, whether I'm at Dunkin' Donuts getting my coffee and I bring them their favorite donut, or, I shoot them an email, haven't seen you all day, miss you in the office, things like that. Little stuff like that can help any relationship just go worlds and bounds further than where they're at, just because it's connecting you on a different level.
Right. And knowing the other person's love language, whether it's a relationship or anyone you're around, helps too.
Right.
It does. Because if you don't know that your partner's love language is, say, just quality time, then you're instead giving them gifts.
Right.
Then they're feeling unloved a little bit. Like, yeah, you're giving me these gifts, but why are you giving me these gifts when all I'm asking you for is your time?
Right.
So.
And so the same thing goes for timing. We get in these times, especially, just after the new year or whatever, where people go on diets and they change their lifestyle and they're doing all these things. And so what worked in November is not going to work now, because maybe your friend, your partner, whoever it is dieting. Or, fasting, or, whatever the case may be.
Oh, bring a salad.
Right.
Not
So
cookies.
maybe instead of going for, lunch, maybe you go for a walk during lunch.
Okay.
Or, something that both of you can still relate, still have that conversation, still take that time together. But it's in a way that's respectful of everyone's personal choices at that time. And that's another way of showing love and showing understanding and validating the other person.
Right.
I'm not one for diets, but I will absolutely have a salad with you. I will, go for a walk during lunch. We could go to the gym during lunch. I'm not opposed to those things,
Right.
because I know it will mean something to you and it's not costing me anything.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little change in routine, but I like being sporadic. So
Yeah.
again, if
Spontaneity.
if it's not costing you anything different, why not meet the other person where they're at? Or find a way to support them without you being there.
Right. Right.
If it's someone that you are, more invested in, you could get them a membership to a gym, or maybe get them some exercise equipment for their home, or your home if you share a home, or even for the office. If you're both invested in exercising but have 2 different lunches, get something that you can put in the office or the workspace that you can share.
Right.
Because not only are you validating them, you're also sharing that moment, which is, again, it's an affirmation to who and what they want to be. It's an affirmation to what they're feeling in that moment.
True enough. True enough.
So why not?
Okay. Interesting. So, what do you see with acts of service? Because I felt like that also falls there.
Yes.
You know, like, if you're willing to walk with me because I'm on the diet, I'm the one that wants this, I'm health conscious. That's kind of an act of service because you're then keeping me accountable.
Right.
So I like that.
Absolutely.
It falls in gifts as well as and quality time. It's all I like that.
And another act of service could be, you know, for some people, like I know people that give blood. It's not suggested to usually drive after giving or donating blood.
Okay.
Acts of service could be, I will drive you to and from, I might not give, but I will drive you to and from your donation session. Or, you know, if you know somebody that's medically sensitive, I will drive you to and from this appointment because I know it's big.
Right.
You're having this procedure, you're a little nervous. Let's go, you know, do something fun before your procedure if time, you know, warrants it.
I mean, it's winter time. I mean, somebody's shoveling the driveway.
That
or
too.
Your sidewalk for you.
For us New England folks. But yeah, shoveling's a big one, especially for our older community. They can't always get out there and shovel on their own, or even rake at some points if they have to handle a whole yard. They can't rake and do all that. They might be able to pot and like grow a garden, but they can't literally pick up a rake and rake up a whole yard and put it in the bags and drag the bags out, because that might just be too much. That might be too much. So those type of things go a long way, you know. And something else that is very small that, you know, used to be a main part of society that's not anymore, holding a door.
Oh my God.
Holding the door for the person behind you, whether it's man, female, child.
Exactly.
You know, holding the door for the person behind you.
Yes.
That can go a long way. Saying good morning. Saying good morning, just appreciating and understanding the being.
Right.
And that just shows a general love and concern for other people. You know, and it's not something that is very, very emotionally tied, but it's something on an everyday that can help bring society as a whole to another level if more people do it.
Yes. I mean, I think a lot more people should be saying thank you. You know, it's funny because in my early 20s, I used to always say, no thank you. Can I have some, please? And it actually had to stop because people here didn't appreciate it. I actually had someone tell me, oh, you don't have to say please. You don't have to say thank you. It's okay. And I'm looking at them like, why wouldn't I say please? I just asked you to do that.
It's a social thing. It's a social thing for sure.
It's crazy. But
just like the word ma'am.
Ugh.
Up north, you call someone ma'am, and it's like you just curse them out. And I remember the first time someone called me ma'am, and I was like, am I old enough to be a ma'am? Not realizing, you know, at that time, not realizing that for some people, culturally, it's just a form of respect.
Right.
But for me, I immediately went to age, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm like old now because I'm being called ma'am. I'm like, what? I'm like, what is this? But again, it's a way, it's a form of love language.
Right.
You don't know me, but it's your way of showing a general love for another being by being respectful in your way.
Exactly.
And people are not always open to the diverse ways of being respectful.
Right. Well, I think we covered all
think so.
All fine. So, when you receive your love, I know how you like to love.
Yes.
Now, how do you receive the love? Like, which one would resonate most with you?
Acts of service resonates most with me. I like to see people do things for me or something that can help me without being told or brought up about it.
Right.
So if you're gonna, right, or don't tell me afterwards. Well, I did. Don't tell me that, because then that discredits it all.
Right.
So if you're with me and maybe we just finished dinner and I didn't do dishes yet, and you go do dishes,
That's a blessing.
I'm like, oh.
Yes.
Well, don't come back in the room and say, well, I did your dishes, because now I'm like,
did I ask you?
I ain't asked you to do that. I was going to get there. Like, you didn't have to do that. But, of course, I see it.
Right.
Or as simple as we're driving around and we're, doing shopping. We're, pre-COVID. We're going out. We're having a good time. And I go in to pay for gas. Or you jump out and you put your card in and you do the gas. That's like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Don't tell me, oh, I'm going to get the gas. Just do what you're going to do.
Right.
I've had people say, oh, stay here. I'm going to run in. Oh, okay. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm very quick. I'll just jump out and do my thing.
Right.
That's fine. I can understand you telling me to stay put.
Right.
I might have some questions because that's just who I am. But that's okay.
I'm about to say, yeah, you know how we are.
Right.
You ain't gonna just say stay put. I'm saying, excuse you.
Why?
But
What
no. Look, so used to being independent and doing for yourself,
Right.
that when an act of love happens, you kind of overlook it because you're so busy. You're independent, do for yourself. But every so often, you gotta stop.
Yeah.
And take notice that someone is actually showing you a kindness, showing you love.
Especially if that's not a way you receive love.
Exactly. But that's the way they give it.
Right. Or if you're not expecting that form of love from that person, because maybe they don't typically speak that way.
True enough. Yeah, because I'm quick to say, I'll pay you, Pop.
Right.
You know what I mean? That way it's two separate actions.
Right.
It works.
Right.
So I get that.
Another way that I receive love is another way that I speak love is physical touch. So I don't pull away or shy from people touching me.
Okay.
Of course, there's a time and a place for everything. And of course, there's different relationships for different things. I wouldn't expect my coworker to come in
and touch your leg.
Or touching my knee, I wouldn't see that as such bad, but touching higher up on my thigh, that would be a little bit much.
See, when I said it, I saw somebody say, girl.
See, and even that.
If it's somebody you're familiar with, yes.
Right.
But if it's somebody that you're not, and they just come over and touch you, there's a problem.
Right. And so for me, the time that sticks out in my head where I had a problem with that is where I was in sports. Someone new was on the team. And so you find your teammates as family at some point. And in sports, there's this thing where you tap someone on the ass and you just tell them good job, or I play basketball, not the greatest sportsman, but whatever. But that's what we did. And so when you have someone new just trying to fit in and they do it, it's like, who are you and why are you? But again, for me now, I can see why they felt comfortable. But at that time, it was immediate attitude, younger self, immediate attitude where it was just like, oh no, you do not. And so even now, there's times where, I might not know someone very well and we'll share a moment and I'm like, oh, hug. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that. And I have to rein it in because I know kind of the person who I'm dealing with. If I could, I would hug more people, but I know that doesn't always come across very well, especially giving the titles or quote unquote social roles that I play. People are not always open to that physical touch. And I'm aware of that, and I don't throw shade, and I'm not upset about it. I understand that everyone has their preferences. But if I could, I would hug more people, and not to be like, nasty, but just a general hug. Like, people need hugs, especially now in COVID. I feel like more people need hugs.
They're gonna need it, but they ain't getting it from me till after the pandemic.
Right. But, I find myself now giving more virtual hugs, or I'm like, ear hug, because I wanna give that hug, and I wanna feel that social connection. And again, not in a sexual way, just like, oh, we have this moment, let's hug. Or, for children, I do a lot of high fives. Children that I'm not related to, I do a lot of high fives or fist bumps. Or, sometimes if they're eating, elbow bumps. And that's great. But for children that are in my family, I'm like, come give me a hug. Of course, if they tell me no, it's no.
Right.
It's no. And it's fine. Again, I get it. And not everyone is a hugger. But if I had it my way, I would hug on so many more people, because I love to love on people. And I love to express love and understanding. And for me, it's that connection. Right. It's that connection where it's just like, you're okay.
And sometimes you can just feel the vibe. That
right.
You know someone could use that hug.
Right. And if you've ever had like a really, really confident connecting hug, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. You feel secure. You feel like,
love.
Right. You feel like the world's stresses are melting away. You are like on the brink of crying if you didn't cry. Like, that's what a hug can do.
Yes. Very healing. Very.
And I love to give that.
Me too.
And so it's funny, because I learned of a profession that was up and coming. When I heard of it, it was mostly in New York. People were becoming professional huggers. And I was like, that is for me. That is for me. I can hug. But then I was like, there's certain people that are not worthy of my hugs. Sorry to say. And there's certain people that I don't want to hug, because when you are in close physical proximity to somebody, you share energy, is my belief. And so I don't want to share energy with someone that is going to drain my energy. There's difference if there's a moment in time and you need to do that. Because again, I am very well aware that I'm an empath. So I know there's moments in time where you might need to unload on me. But I need to be ready, so I know how to then deload whatever you just loaded onto me, right, and process it appropriately. There are some people that drain more than they understand that they do. And there are people that do not know how toxic their being is. And there's a lot of work to overcome that. But I wouldn't want to put myself in that predicament where I am being drained, because then I become that negative entity energy-wise, and I carry that home.
In my earlier years, it was like I was a beacon for sadness. It seemed like everybody I knew just needed that. And I would give it, but I didn't know.
At what cost?
Exactly. And it's weird to finally understand, because I didn't know then. Every time I felt enraged or something like that in the proximity of somebody else, it wasn't mine. And I needed to let it go, but I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to let it go. So sometimes people need to understand that. Sometimes your rage or your emotion, your sadness, it's not yours. It could be someone around you that's not happy. They could be depressed. They could be experiencing something, but you're feeling what it is that they're feeling, but you don't know that.
And I tell people all the time, strong emotions are contagious. It's almost as bad as COVID. It can kill you, because you not knowing where, how, or why you're walking around so negative, you are depleting the joy you have. And as I say, with anything, when you get to that point where you no longer see or understand what joy is,